every crazy Sherlock theory that might actually be true. John Watson is not the sidekick. He is the most dangerous person in every single scene he walks into. And the show tells you this in the first 20 minutes of the first episode. A medical examiner looks at Watson and says, almost to himself, that an army doctor who has served in Afghanistan is someone to be careful around. Not pitied, not helped. Careful around. Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot. Right there in the first conversation. Theory 1. Watson is the most dangerous person in the room. The show gives Watson a cane he'd at him. The cane is not a wound. The cane is a performance for a world that does not know what to do with a man who feels most alive in situations that should terrify him. Strip the gentle companion framing away. Look at the actual behavior. Watson chooses Sherlock, not because he is loyal, because Sherlock takes him to the only places where Watson feels like himself. Crime scenes, danger, the absolute edge of what is survivable. That is not a devoted friend. That is a man who found the one person on Earth who would keep feeding him what he actually needs. The clinical term for what Watson is managing is not grief. It is not loyalty. It is addiction. And Sherlock Holmes is the substance. Theory 2. Mycroft is a handler, not a brother. The show frames Mycroft as the cautious older brother, the government man, the one who worries from a distance and occasionally pulls strings to keep Sherlock alive. Season 2, Episode 3. Mycroft hands Moriarty's complete psychological profile to Irene Adler, knowing that Adler is working for Moriarty, knowing that this information will reach the man actively trying to destroy his brother. He does this deliberately. The show lets it pass without a single line of explanation. Every case that pulls Sherlock into genuine mortal danger across seasons 1 through 3 has Mycroft's fingerprints somewhere in the architecture. The criminal game that defines Moriarty's entire campaign. The political situations that require Sherlock specifically and nobody else. The network that survives after Moriarty dies. Mycroft does not protect Sherlock from the world. Mycroft curates which parts of the world Sherlock gets to fight. Season 4 tells you exactly why. A man who constructs a private island prison to contain a family secret does not manage his brother's life out of love alone. He manages it out of control. Mycroft Holmes is not a guardian. He is a handler, and there is a meaningful difference between those two things. Theory 3. Irene Adler won and the show hopes you missed it. Season 2, Episode 1. Irene Adler does something no character in the show's entire run manages to do. She beats Sherlock Holmes, completely, cleanly, and without contest. She has the phone. She has the information. She wins. The show softens this by having Sherlock rescue her at the episode's end. He tracks her to Karachi and saves her life with a sword. The audience exhales. Sherlock wins after all. But look at the actual sequence. Sherlock does not recover the phone. He does not neutralize the threat she posed. He saves her life, which she did not ask for, in a country she had already escaped to, after she had already completed everything she came to do. The rescue is not a victory. It is a consolation gesture dressed as one. Irene Adler walked away from Sherlock Holmes with everything she came for. The show just did not want you to sit with that for too long. Theory 4. Eurus built Moriarty's psychological attack from behind a glass wall. Season 4, Episode 3 reveals that Eurus Holmes was held in Sharonford from early childhood. The show presents her as a sudden revelation, a secret Sherlock buried so completely that he replaced her entire memory with a fictional dog named Redbeard. But go back to Season 2. Go back to Moriarty's campaign against Sherlock. It is not the work of a genius improvising. It is a customized psychological attack built on precise knowledge of exactly where Sherlock's foundations crack. Someone gave Moriarty that blueprint. Season 4, Episode 3 shows Moriarty visiting Sharonford on Christmas Day. 1 meeting. 5 seconds of screen time. Mycroft approved it. The show moves past it like a footnote. It is not a footnote. Eurus demonstrates the ability to psychologically reshape an entire prison facility through conversation alone, with no technology, through a speaking hole. If she could do that to strangers in weeks, consider what she gave Moriarty in a single afternoon. Every pressure point, every fracture, every specific wound a Holmes brother carries and cannot name. Eurus built the game. Moriarty ran it. The show presents this as 2 separate stories. It is one story. Theory 5. Moriarty's network survived him and someone is running it. Season 2, Episode 3. Moriarty shoots himself on the roof of Bart's hospital. The show treats the death as definitive. The threat is over. The game is done. Then, Season 4, Episode 1 opens with his face on every screen in Britain. His voice. 3 words. Did you miss me? The show attributes this to a pre-recorded message. A dead man's final move. But look at what happens in the seasons between his death and that broadcast. Charles Augustus Magnuson in Season 3 operates with an infrastructure of blackmail and leverage that mirrors Moriarty's network in sophistication and reach. He is not building something new. He is using something that already exists. An apparatus with international connections, compromised officials, and decades of accumulated leverage. That does not get built between Seasons 2 and 3 by a newspaper man with a good memory. Someone inherited the network. Someone kept it operational. The show never names that person. It just shows you a criminal infrastructure that does not die when its figurehead does. That door was left open deliberately. Theory 6. The final problem never actually happened. Season 3, Episode 3. Sherlock is shot and on the edge of death. The Mind Palace stops being a tool and becomes the environment. He moves through memory and construct as though they are physical spaces. He dies briefly. He is revived. He comes back. Season 4, Episode 2 ends with Sherlock on a plane going nowhere, sedated and psychologically collapsed after the most sustained emotional assault of his life. The theory is that the plane never lands. Everything in Season 4, Episode 3 is a Mind Palace sequence. A sedated Sherlock constructing a confrontation with his buried childhood trauma in the only format his brain knows how to process experience. As a case, as a problem, as something with a solution at the end. The horror movie logic, the impossible villain who reshapes people through pure conversation. The 5-year-old who survives a plane crash without a single scratch. The perfectly timed riddles delivered like a game show. None of this is how the show operates in its first 3 seasons. These are not the marks of a poorly written episode. They are the marks of a mind building a world from the inside. Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss have never specifically denied this reading. The show ends with 221B restored, Baker Street rebuilt, Watson and Sherlock running in slow motion toward the camera. It ends exactly the way a Mind Palace sequence would end, with the dreamer returning to the version of the world that feels most like home. Theory 7. Mary was not found. She was deployed. The show frames Mary Watson as the complication, the woman who comes between the partnership, the civilian who wandered into Sherlock's world and fell in love with the man standing next to him. Look at what Mary actually is before the show turns her into a narrative problem. A former intelligence operative who constructed a false identity so complete that it survived years of proximity to a man who deduces the biography of everyone he meets within 30 seconds. She is not a civilian. She was built for exactly the kind of world Sherlock operates in. Season 3, Episode 3. Mary shoots Sherlock. Not to kill him. She places the bullet with surgical precision in a location designed to incapacitate rather than destroy. She is a former assassin making a calculated choice in a crisis with a perfect record of accuracy. Then she spends the remainder of her arc ensuring Watson stays close to Sherlock. Her death in Season 4, Episode 1 removes her from the story at exactly the moment her presence is no longer operationally required. The show asks you to read this as guilt and love and sacrifice. There is another reading. Mary did not find John Watson. She was sent to him. And the show never tells you who gave the order. Theory 8. Sherlock's drug use is not a flaw. It is a system. The show presents Sherlock's drug use as a character flaw. A bad habit. A weakness in an otherwise extraordinary person that the people who care about him work to correct. Look at the actual pattern. Sherlock uses drugs specifically and consistently during periods of low stimulation. Not during cases, not during stress, during boredom. Season 1, Episode 1 establishes this in the opening scene. Boredom is not a preference for Sherlock Holmes. It is a physiological event. He describes a brain without stimulation as something actively painful. Something that requires management. The cocaine, the cigarettes, the nicotine patches worn 3 at a time. These are not recreational. They are functional. They are a self-administered treatment for a specific neurological experience the show never names, but demonstrates with complete precision across every season. Strip the moral framing away. Look at the actual behavior. The clinical picture is not addiction in the conventional sense. It is a person managing an extraordinary brain with the only tools available to him in a world not designed for the way he processes reality. The show frames this as weakness. It is one of the most quietly accurate depictions in the series of what it actually costs to be wired the way Sherlock Holmes is wired. Theory 9. The entire show is Watson's blog. John Watson's blog is not a detail inside the show. It is the show, not a metaphor, literally. The camera perspective, the emotional framing, the decisions about which details are emphasized and which are withheld. The way Sherlock is consistently presented as extraordinary rather than erratic, genius rather than dangerous. These are editorial choices, and in the world of BBC Sherlock, those editorial choices belong to one person. Watson writes the blog that makes Sherlock famous. The show tells you this explicitly and repeatedly. Strangers recognize Sherlock because of Watson's writing. Clients come because of Watson's writing. Moriarty builds his own mythology in part by countering the mythology Watson created. Season 3, Episode 1. Watson is shown constructing multiple versions of the Sherlock survival story. He is a narrator who knows he is narrating. A writer who knows that the story he tells determines what people believe. Every moment where Sherlock seems brilliant rather than obsessive. Every moment where danger feels thrilling rather than reckless. Every moment where the partnership feels essential rather than codependent. That is Watson editing the footage. That is Watson. Theory 10. The show was always one story, and Watson wrote all of it. Hold every theory in this script together and look at what they share. Watson chose Sherlock because danger is what Watson needs. Mycroft controlled the danger to manage what Sherlock became. Eurus shaped Moriarty to ensure the danger was specific and personal. Mary was placed inside Watson's life to keep the partnership intact. The final problem may not have happened outside the walls of Sherlock's mind. Moriarty's network outlived Moriarty. Irene Adler won and walked away clean. Every single one of these threads connects back to the same buried architecture. The show is not about Sherlock Holmes solving crimes. It is about John Watson deciding what story to tell about a man who cannot tell his own story. The genius, the coldness, the slow emergence of something that looks like humanity. Watson chose all of it. Watson wrote all of it. Watson exactly who Sherlock Holmes was going to be for the rest of the world. That is not